All right, my dudes and dudettes, you wanted a video, so let's do this. A dependent clause begins with a subordinating conjunction. These are your subordinating conjunctions. What a dependent clause is an independent clause, a complete sentence, a complete thought. And when you put a subordinator in front of it, that complete thought becomes a dependent thought. It can no longer be by itself. It then needs another thought to be complete. So if you just said, you get off of work, that would be a complete sentence until you put the word after in front of it. Now it reads as, after you get off of work, and you can't stop a sentence there. That independent thought has now been turned into a dependent thought. That's why we call this a dependent clause. So after you get off of work, comma, let's have some fun. Then we have our independent thought, the thought that completes the dependent one after it. Or you could flip it and say, let's have some fun after you get off of work. Now what matters for this grammar module is the punctuation, and here's the punctuation rule. When that dependent clause comes first, you follow it with a comma. When the dependent clause comes second, there is no comma. So after you get off of work, comma, let's have some fun. Let's have some fun after you get off of work. Let's put an application. If you want to pause the screen for a second and see if you can test yourself, that's fine. We're going to go through these. Once Tommy arrives, let's party hard. In this case, we do need a comma because once Tommy arrives is your dependent clause. It's coming first. You need a comma. Or you could flip it and say, let's party hard once Tommy arrives. And with that dependent clause coming second, then you have no comma. I knew what would happen until that part of the movie. In this case, until that part of the movie is the dependent clause. When that dependent clause comes second, no comma. However, if you flip it and put the dependent clause first, now you've got a comma. Last one, several things happened when she walked into the room. When she walked into the room is our dependent clause. It's coming second, so we don't have a comma. Until we flip it and put that dependent clause up front, then it has a comma. Second rule in this module. Coordinated conjunctions, also known as fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. When fanboys join two complete sentences, use a comma. When fanboys are not joining two complete sentences, do not use a comma. There can be exceptions like when you make a list, apples, oranges, and tomatoes. Aaron went to the park and played some ball. Aaron went to the park and he played some ball. In this case, the first sentence doesn't have a comma because if you look at what comes after the and, played some ball is not a complete sentence. It's actually what we call a compound predicate. We have one subject, Aaron, and he's doing two things. He went and he played. We do not use a comma since we don't have two sentences. But look what happens when we add one more word, he. When we add that subject, Aaron went to the park, sentence 1. He played some ball, sentence 2. Being joined by a fanboy, so we need a comma. Aaron went to the park, comma, and he played some ball. So here we go again. Let's see if you can figure out which ones need comma or no comma. I like you, but you drive me crazy. Comma or no comma? Comma, because I like you is the first sentence. Whew, sorry, my voice is giving out. You drive me crazy is the second sentence, joined by the fanboy, but, so we need a comma. But look at the next one. Aaron and Jared fight like cats and dogs. Is what's in front of this fanboy a complete sentence? Is Aaron a complete sentence? No. So you're not going to use a comma here because this is simply joining two subjects in a complete sentence. So let's look at this last sentence. I wish you and Aaron would get along. Now, this may look like originally like it's two sentences. I wish you, maybe that's a sentence, and maybe Aaron would get along is another sentence. But if you actually read it, I wish you and Aaron would get along, you'll realize that, again, this is just one sentence, and this is what we call it. It's a compound subject and a noun clause. You don't need to know that yet. But all you really need to know is that this and is not joining two sentences. And if it's not joining two sentences, we don't need a comma. All right, how does this apply to our module? These are your four possible answers in the module. Comma, because the dependent clause is coming first. No comma, because the dependent clause is coming second. Comma, because a coordinating conjunction or a fanboy is joining two independent clauses or two sentences. Or no comma, because a coordinating conjunction is joining something other than two independent clauses. Let's look at our possible answers. So here's what the questions look like. When you arrive, question mark, can we go out for some ice cream? In this case, when you arrive is a dependent clause, but starting with your subordinate conjunction when, it's coming first. So it needs a comma, because the dependent clause is coming first. Katniss fought for survival even though she didn't believe that she could win. In this case, even though she couldn't believe she would win, beginning with the subordinate conjunction, even though is the dependent clause. But this time, the dependent clause is coming second, so we don't need a comma. I followed Jacob Black's instructions exactly, and my cheesecake turned out perfectly. In this case, you got the fanboy and it's joining two complete sentences. I followed Jacob Black's instructions exactly, sentence 1. My cheesecake turned out perfectly, sentence 2. So we do need a comma with this fanboy joining two different sentences. And then finally, we've got Leslie Winkler brought cupcakes and lemonade to the picnic. We got a fanboy and, but when you look at what comes after the and, lemonade to the picnic, is that a complete sentence? No, it's What's being joined here is a direct object. Leslie Winkle brought what? Cupcakes and lemonade. This is not joining two sentences. And if it's not joining two sentences, then we don't need a comma because it's joining something other than two independent clauses. I hope this helps.